Kia ora koutou and welcome to this IMNZ Leadership Summit. I'm Tristram Clayton and we're thrilled so many of you have decided to join us to listen to and engage with our amazing lineup of speakers. This free virtual series is all about leadership, about stepping up in difficult times, but it's also about doing more with less and adapting to this fast-changing world we all live in. Every one of our 7 speakers today is an extraordinary leader. Some are new to it, some have been at it for decades, but all have known tough times, successes, and that daunting feeling of being asked to step up and lead. In a moment, our first speaker, Andrew Barnes, but first I'd like to introduce Suzanne Despong from IMNZ. That's the Institute of Management New Zealand, which has made today's Leadership Summit and the following 2 webinars possible. Suzanne, if you're just joining the main stage now, here she comes. Hi, Suzanne. Over to you.
Thank you, Tristram. It's my very great pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of IMNZ to this very first of IMNZ's Virtual Summit Leadership Series. We're very excited to be bringing you this series, as for the past 70 years, IMNZ has been bringing hands-on, real-world learning to New Zealand's business community, helping to transform talented Kiwis into valuable managers and visionary leaders. Now, more than ever, is a critical time for us all to come together and play our part in the COVID-19 recovery effort, and to support our leaders and managers with tools to help them step up in these challenging times. I'll be moderating the Q&A sessions today. This is where you can come to after the speakers' main presentations to ask questions and be part of an interactive session. Tristram will have more on how those will work shortly. Then, as well as today's virtual summit, we will be hosting IMNZ webinars in the coming weeks, where you can listen to other high-profile individuals in hour-long webinars. The first 2 of these will be next Wednesday, 26th of August, and the following Wednesday, 2nd of September. We look forward to seeing you there, so make sure you put that in your diary. You can find the details on our website, imnz.co.nz. That's all from me for now. Back to you, Tristram.
Thank you, Suzanne. And as she said, Suzanne will be moderating the live Q&A sessions, which will follow our keynote speakers' presentations. Now, a quick word to explain where you can find those Q&As and all of our speakers. If you're listening to this, you have managed to find the stage tab. Well done. That's the icon near the top on the extreme left-hand edge of your screen. This is where all our keynote speakers will give their main presentation. Each one will start on the hour and the half hour and last roughly 20 minutes. Now, following their presentation, each speaker will then be available for a live Q&A. This will take place in the Sessions tab, as you can see just beneath the Stage tab on the left-hand side of your screen. So this is where you can ask our speakers questions directly via video or by chat, just writing in a question. Or, of course, you can just listen in to what's likely to be some fascinating conversation. Suzanne will be present, as she says, at all of those Q&As to help facilitate questions for our speakers. And one more point before I introduce our first speaker, don't forget to vote in our polls. That's on the right near the chat options. Just click into the polls. I think we've got 3 questions there. We'll add more as issues arise during our presentations. And of course, once you've voted, you'll be able to see the results as they come in. Alrighty, so let's get on with it. Our first speaker needs little introduction. Andrew Barnes, if you could make your way onto the main stage now, please. Andrew has made a career of market-changing leadership and innovation. And at the beginning of 2018, it was Andrew who triggered a revolution in the corporate workday with the introduction of the 4-day week to his own company, Perpetual Guardian. Joining us now from the UK, Andrew Barnes. Over to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Tristan. And kia ora, everybody. It's great to be here. When I was asked to do this, it's one of these confronting things, you know, to ask yourself the question, what advice would you give your younger self? And frankly, when I look, I wouldn't really have started from here. My background is I was the freak of my family. My family are artists. Every single one of them would express themselves in the medium of painting or design, or in the case of my brother, as an architect. And I was the member of the family that decided that they would go out into the world of business. What I didn't appreciate when I was younger was actually having that appreciation of art, a different way of thinking, was actually something that I could and should have harnessed in my early days as a businessman and a business leader. In fact, I was totally colored by the fact that my parents came from the war generation. My father's father had died during the war. My mother's father was generally unemployed broadly between the end of the First War and the start of the Second. And so they were highly colored with the concept of safety, of being very cautious. And that led me, when I went into my business career, to approach work with exactly the same ethos. In a way, I can remember as I started my career, I had several options as a 21, 22-year-old. I could have been a global banker operating out of the Middle East. I could have been a spy. I had an offer from MI5 and MI6. Or actually, I could do what I did, was become a retail banker in Bedford, in England. And I look back on that decision and realized that I had this great conversation with myself when I was 21 that said, Andrew, you've got to really stop mucking around. You actually need to settle down and get a job. And indeed, probably for the next 20 years, I spent my time in business always reacting and being cautious. Now, actually, that's not what I was doing. And I didn't recognize it at the time. I ran a series of transactions, both in the City of London and also in Australia, when I went to Australia in 1987, which were actually quite groundbreaking. But I didn't recognize that. I was forever worried about safety, about doing the right thing, being very cautious in terms of my own personal development. And what I didn't do was start to look forward and start to think how I could set my own agenda rather than following somebody else's agenda. Now, I think that's relevant because often in business, and certainly in finance, you find that there is actually nothing new under the sun. And that actually, if you look around you, you can apply experiences, lessons from the past, and you can reimagine how business will be in the future. Now, as I said, it took me far too long to recognize that I had to make a change. And for me, that change came when I was 40. And a couple of guys walked into my office and said to me, look, we've got this real estate listing website. Would you be prepared to advertise on the website? In those days, I was a director at Macquarie Bank. And I said, no, actually, I wouldn't be prepared to advertise on the website, but I'd buy the website. And we bought this website. We listed this company, which is now the REA Group. Which is possibly, I think, to this day, the first or second ranked digital business to come out of Australia. But I did that for Macquarie Bank. I didn't do that for myself. And as I always joke to colleagues and friends, it could have been Bill Gates than me had I done it for myself. But I was way too cautious, and that I couldn't see that I could step out into the unknown and do the deal for myself. It was that deal, and that deal alone, that was the point at which I suddenly stopped and had a look at what I was doing and said, this is mad. Andrew, you've actually got to try and do a few things for yourselves. And the other thing at that point was that I'd also taken a bit of a look at the way in which I was leading the businesses that I was leading. And I wrote about this in my book, The 4-Day Week, when I said that I thought about the environment that I was in And at that time, I was working for Macquarie. And I took a view that everything that I was doing up to that point was not building and making effective teams. I was a creature of the City of London. I was a creature of long hours, meaning you were working hard, you were being effective. And I hadn't really twigged that actually communication, empathy was the way in which you built high-performing teams. And so at the same time as I took a long, hard look at my own business career and said, actually, Andrew, you've got to start a different path, I also had a look at the way I was working. And I decided that actually from that point, I would do things entirely differently. And the journey that that started on is the journey that has ended up with, you know, Perpetual Guardian and the 4-day week. And obviously what is now groundbreaking in terms of the way in which we approach the working week and the future of work. Now, I should have recognized that earlier. And the key lesson for me, the very key lesson, is that actually you need to be bold. It's very easy to stay in a cautious bubble. But actually, if I look back at my own career, clearly, being bold, taking risks was something that I should have done from a far earlier age. Now, the world is different now. I think the world is more sympathetic towards people setting up new businesses, taking risks. You know, the irony when we launched real estate was that actually people turned around to us and said, actually, we can't support this business because it's losing money. Now, nowadays, that is not something you would even worry about. It is bitter experience that has told me that actually not doing something is actually often far more risky than doing something. And it's this appreciation of risk, in that if you do nothing, if you try nothing, you will certainly achieve nothing. But on the other hand, if you at least try something, even if it has a high probability of failure, what it has is an opportunity for success. But if you don't try it, you will never succeed. So in many ways, trying something is far, far less risky than not trying something. That is a lesson I should have learned and did not recognize until I was too late. Now, for me, one of the things that caused me to rethink was about the fact that I chose to travel, to go over the seas, to live and work elsewhere. That forced me again to rethink how I was going to address things. And it also gave me an opportunity to have a look at how people do things differently in different countries, and then start to say, can I apply that to business? Now, when I look at what we're doing now at Perpetual Guardian and the 4-day week, you know, a lot of people do say to me, well, you know, wasn't that a bold decision? Wasn't that something that was highly risky? How did you know that that was going to work? Well, actually, this is again something where I realized that if I looked backwards, in the dim and distant days, I was an officer in the Royal Navy. And the Royal Navy taught you how to lead. Not that I realized it at the time. But there was a saying in the Navy, and that was that a good ship is a happy ship. And a good business is actually usually a happy business. If you have people who are empowered, engaged, they generally work better. Yet actually, when I looked at my own experience in business for the first 20 years, it was working in companies where actually that was of absolutely no importance at all. What people were doing was applying the other lesson, which is that I've always worked long hours. Therefore, to succeed, you must work long hours. Therefore, you must work long hours. What I did in the end was actually go back to remembering that early lesson and remembering the lessons that said that you have to empower your people so that they are capable of delivering great things. And so when we start the 4-day week, it was actually drawing on all of those lessons that I had, frankly, neatly forgotten. And that was a lesson learned again for me, that those basics I learned in the Navy, I forgot throughout my whole career in banking, because that was all about management. And what I needed to have done was I needed to lead. And the other message that the Navy taught me was that when you are giving orders, when you are leading a team of people, you have to be able to communicate effectively. You have to tell them what the objective is, ensure that everybody understands it, and then they are able to execute it and move forward together. Again, for too many years, I forgot that communication is leadership. And a lot of the job that I do now, the things that I'm doing now, are all about thinking about not just the message I'm delivering, but critically how the people who are listening to the message, how they are going to react to that message, how they're going to understand that message. And if you can articulate the story in a way that they can understand and they can appreciate, then again, you will get a far better outcome from it. The 4-day week epitomizes all of that because it is something that is driven by my people who understand very clearly the deal that I have given them. That is effectively, I need to get a productivity outcome. On their side, they will get the benefit of the time off, but we've both got to achieve our objectives, and we all understand the role that we are playing within the organization. I think all too often we forget that in business. So those are the two core areas for me that have actually put me in a position where I think I can now lead businesses effectively. The other thing is bizarrely that there is absolutely nothing new under the sun. We often pretend there is, but usually innovation, when it comes, is about how we deliver the same product, the same service in a different way that reflects the technology that is current today. And if you look at a lot of the new digital businesses, which are, supposedly innovating, one of the things that I can see in my reasonably lengthy career, certainly in the finance community, is that I can cast my mind back 10, 20, 30, God help me, almost 40 years, and I can see the same product that has been delivered in the past. It's just been done in a different way. So often those lessons from the past are very helpful in determining how you grow, develop, drive a business going forward. I think it was Roosevelt said that we have nothing else to fear but fear itself. And there's another a favorite quote of mine from Churchill, which is, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. If there is one lesson that I would have taught my younger self, it is that. It is to take the risk. It is to step out into the void. And it is also to recognize, in reality, that the path is never that smooth. My own journey in the last 5 years with Perpetual Guardian has been a relatively rocky one. We've had a lot of issues about raising money, how we've been able to bring the businesses together. And it is only at the end of what has been, you know, a journey of about 8 years, the last 2 years, that actually everything has all come together. Success does not come quickly. Success is something that you have to work at, and you have to keep going with that. And finally, I would also say that often this is about yourself. In Nick Hornby's book, Fever Pitch, there's a wonderful line where Hornby says, "Is life shit because Arsenal are shit, or the other way around?" When I was at my lowest point, I realized that the reason I hated what I was doing, the reason that I wasn't achieving what I wanted, the reason I didn't like the place that I was in, had nothing to do with the business, with the environment, and with the city that I was working in, and had absolutely a lot to do with the way that I was looking at the world. It was only when I changed that, it was only when I realized that there was a way that I could rethink myself, then that was the point at which I realized that I could build a great business, and more to the point, I could move forward to do something that potentially will change the world. I didn't believe when we started a Perpetual Guardian with the 4-day week, 3 years ago now, that a little idea in a small company in New Zealand would now be a mainstream policy around the world, debated by global leaders with an audience of 5 billion people, and with company after company starting to go down that path. It's only now that I recognize the reason I could do that was because of all of the lessons that I forgot in my journey in the first sort of 40 years, 25 years of my business career. So looking back, if I'd learnt those lessons earlier, I'd like to think I could have delivered more and better sooner. Thank you.
Fantastic words there, Andrew. Thank you so much. Live from the UK, a couple of points. He's jumped out already, but I loved your couple of things you mentioned there: the communication, the empathy, being bold. Not doing something is far more risky than doing something. I love that. Communication is leadership, and of course that quote from the Fever Pitch book, which I also loved. So Andrew's just jumped off the main stage. Fortunately, despite being 25 past 10 UK time, Andrew will be with us for a little longer. I know a lot of you will have questions for him. He is sticking around. He is now going to be available for his live Q&A chat over in Sessions. So to access that, all you have to do is click the Sessions tab on the left of your screen, just below the stage tab that you're currently in. So click into the Sessions and then click Andrew Barnes's live live Q&A group, and you can either video yourself to answer those questions or just write them in as part of the chat. Andrew will be with us for a few minutes longer to take that live Q&A. So jump over to sessions now. And of course, don't forget that our next presentation here on the main stage will begin in 10 minutes. And this is going to be with one of New Zealand's most talked about leaders, Sinead Boucher. She's the CEO and as of May, the owner of the Stuff Media Group. So exciting presentation, that one. Look forward to seeing you back here on the main stage at 9:30. That's in 5 minutes time. But for everyone who wants to ask a question or just keep listening to Andrew Barnes, jump across to his live Q&A chat in sessions right now, and I'll see you back there at 9:30.